Hi, this is Greg Hildebrandt, and you're listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast.
Hello everybody, my name is Ian Taylor and welcome to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, brought to you by the Marvel Cards Fan Collective, an awesome community of card collectors and creators. You can find our two groups on Facebook, details of which are at the end of this podcast, so come check us out. With me as always is my co-pilot in all things Marvel cards. The Halloween decorations go up 4th of July and Christmas decorations from September. Yes, it's one big holiday season in his home. It's Norrin Rad.
Thank you. And yes, so true, actually. Got all my Halloween decorations already out and ready to go. But it's 2020, so you got to give me some slack. It's the only way to make anything different. So You say that, but you did do that last year. Okay, thank you for that, Ian. Now everybody knows I'm weird, so thank you.
It was your birthday the other week, and didn't you have Halloween stuff on your birthday?
Well, I love Halloween.
September. Yeah, exactly.
See, I'm all about the aesthetics. That's just how I am. You know what I mean? I just like all the glitz and glam and story. Yeah, whatever. That's fine. Don't look at me so weird. I can see you looking at me and judging me.
No,
that's
I'm not
fine.
judging you. I'm not judging you. I don't care. I might be quietly judging you a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
you are quietly judging me.
My question is, where does Thanksgiving fit into this? In the decoration?
With
do you do decorations for Thanksgiving? Is that a thing? I don't know.
My wife cooks. Do you do decorate? I mean, Thanksgiving's kind of a weird thing, right? It's like really impressive and kind of strange. Yeah, I mean, it's just a food thing for me personally. That's how I go about it. You know what I mean? My wife cooks a lot. I mostly see the bathroom on Thanksgiving, but like, I love. No, I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I'm just kidding. No, it's all
that tryptophan that you just fall asleep in front of the fireplace.
That's it.
No.
That's what I keep the bedpan beside me. I don't have to move. It's glorious. I'm American. This is just how we do it.
All of a sudden, we're back in Victorian times.
The
reason I went to Thanksgiving is that's one of my clumsy segues, as regular listeners will know, I get up to. Because this episode, this is our 75th episode. So today, humble brethren, we give thanks for our special guest on this podcast. I'm tickled pink to welcome Greg Hildebrandt is with us this week. Hello, Greg.
Well, hi. What color of pink is that? Is that more salmon pink or is that more shocking pink or what?
It's it's more sort of 70s disco neon pink, actually.
I like that. That's good.
That's where I'm going today. So I appreciate you making time out of your Sunday for us. I feel overdressed all of a sudden. But
I like that.
Why?
Great.
So Ian dressed up and he looks absolutely dashing. Very much a modern day James Bond kind of situation, or James Bond villain, however you want to look at him. But it's gorgeous, and you look very dressed up. And do you want to tell us why you dressed up so sexy?
Oh, I've got the newsreader thing going on. I've got jeans on.
That, Ian. Look at this, but see my pants?
You guys are all class acts, okay?
That's amazing. Is that Christmas skull and crossbone pants?
Christmas crossbone.
Santa Claus suit.
Okay, we are 3 minutes in, and we've already seen Greg Hildebrandt's pants. Marvelous.
I'm not doing anything interesting. I'm so embarrassed. I'm wearing actual jeans. I feel like I should be like in boxers just to keep it going. You know what I mean? Just keep stepping it up. Yeah. I'm wearing a crop top, so that's true. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Oh, dear.
I didn't mean to try to upstage you there with the pants, but you know what I'm saying? It's like
you're the guest. You're meant to upstage us. This is the whole.
That's kind of the idea. That's kind of the idea. Greg, we are no surprises for guessing why we asked you to be our guest. We are big into the Marvel trading cards, and you might have done one or two in your.
A couple of them. Yeah, I can remember. Yes.
Yeah.
That was something else. That was like a great period.
Yeah, well, listen, we'll get into it, but I as with all these things, you kind of. Yeah, I'm aware of all the work that you did on Marvel sets, and I know that you did with your brother some other trading card sets that were kind of your own work. Hang on, cat on the podcast. Brilliant. Yes, no, you're Greg's.
Here's one.
Hey!
It's that beautiful little thing.
Yes.
cute cats.
He's not even a year old yet.
Oh,
We've got a sister here too. They'll be running around, probably jumping up here. You know?
no, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. We've been talking for a while about getting a Marvel Meowsterpieces thing going on, where we have cats of creators, and
Nice.
it pleases me no end that you have cats, so we can
Cats are special, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So, and I started looking back.
One of my favorite actors, James Mason, I think he wrote a book on cats.
That rings. Oh yes,
like 20 cats at one time. He and his wife. Anyway,
Wow.
That's got nothing to do with anything.
No. Well, yeah, I absolutely love James Mason's voice.
Oh my
It's
God!
those really soothing voices.
You
Yes.
call that murder? I see murder too, not written on the faces of those drowned sailors out there, but on the faces of countless thousands. There are the assassins, the dealers in death. I am the avenger. Is murder a right reserved for that hated nation? That hated nation that has taken everything from me, everything but my secret, the secret of this submarine and the energy that propels it. They tried. God knows they tried. You know what I'm saying? That's not speech, but that's speech.
I am so going to add some of that
Gene,
applause.
you got to move over, Gene. I'm taking him from you. Will you marry me, sir? That was a beautiful, beautiful performance. Holy crap, that was amazing.
I say that film came out in 1954, Disney. I've never read anybody write about the ambiguity of that film in terms of, they always called Nemo the villain and Kirk Douglas, Ned Land as the hero. But I saw it as the exact opposite. And I think, Nemo's the hero, of course, and there's Kirk Douglas. Well, he's a likable villain, but he's all this kind of, he gives away the secret and destroys the island base, Anyway, that's a whole segue.
Wow, that's awesome.
We're all about segues, Greg. If you only
This is the whole show. Seriously, this is all we do.
Yeah. This is it. Who did we have on? And we had an entire segue where we were talking about 80s TV shows. Was it?
It was Geist. It was Geist, right?
Eric Geist. Eric Geist.
Yes.
Who we spoke to recently. Anyway,
It was a trip. That was fun, man. What a trip. That was crazy. Yeah, we do this all the time, Greg. Welcome.
And I started as one does with your website and with the horror that is Wikipedia. And the one thing I was not aware of, and I shamed for this, is that I'm British, so the Star Wars poster that I remember from when I was 6 was the one that you and your brother painted. And I know you've spoken about this numerous times before, but it might be new to our listeners. Tell us about that Star Wars poster before we get onto the Marvel cards, because it's fascinating.
It's iconic.
Well, to begin with, who I thank for getting that poster is Mel Brooks. And the reason I thank Mel Brooks for getting that poster is Tim and I, my brother and I, were illustrating all kinds of stuff. And, we were just, it was getting to be kind of like not very interesting stuff, like a toilet training book, and we said, well, God, let's go do something more interesting. Let's go see if we can get movie posters. And so in those days, in the 70s, you could pick up the yellow pages, right, and just point. And we kind of like, flip the page open to I forgot what the hell the category was, movie posters or what the hell, ad agency. And we went like this and pointed in there and, called the guys up. And they said, oh, yeah, come on and bring your portfolio. You could do that back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was much more in New York City, of all places, right? You just called the director and they'd see you. So we went in with a portfolio, but we walked into the art director's office, one of the owners of the agency, and he had all these paintings on his chairs and propped around the room for Young Frankenstein. So this is 1973. And I said, Mel Brooks, Young Frankenstein. What the hell is this? Well, Brooks is doing Young Frankenstein. It's black and white. Blah, blah, blah. I said, we got to do a poster. We have to do a poster, please. And the guy said, well, the budget's all over with, and they're being shipped off tomorrow morning to California for Brooks to look at, all the artwork. I said, I don't care. We'll do it overnight. What? So we insisted. They gave us a bunch of 8x10s out of the film. We went home on the train back to Jersey. We live in New Jersey. And we worked out the setup, in our head. The monster with the girl, with the Igor, Dr. Frankenstein.
It's Igor. Okay, let's just get that straight.
I'm
just kidding.
And so we bashed the painting out overnight. We literally did a painting overnight. It was very rough, broad, almost like pulpy. We figured the 30s look. Brought it back into them the next morning. They went crazy. They said, "What the hell?" And we said, "Well, this is it." And they said, "Well, long story short, though, they didn't use it. And 3 years go by. Now we illustrate the rings. This is before the rings. So we illustrate the rings. We get a world reputation now. Now we've got a fan following. And I'm starting my own novel with my brother Ursharak, which is
right.
And we get a call from these guys. He says, "You got to help us out." "What do you mean?" "Well, we've got a movie here. The director isn't quite happy with the poster he's got, so he needs a new poster." So we said, "Okay." I said, "What is it?" He saw some kind of a science fiction movie. These guys, they hadn't seen the film, right? Nobody had seen it yet.
Yeah.
And so we went in and went over it, and there was Tom Young's poster. The British.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the British, but the one they used here for the.
That's right. Yeah, the first one.
And I said, "Well, what do you want?" And they said, "Well, this." But what do you mean this? And we had a discussion, and they said, "Well, the director wants it more comic booky." That was the director that we got. So we said we didn't know. They didn't explain what they meant by that. So they gave us all the info, the poster, a bunch of shots out of the film, Darth Vader and everything. And we went home and we just basically did our own setup. I grabbed my first wife, then wife, as to pose for Leia. I shot some Polaroid shots, and I grabbed a buddy to pose for, get the lighting right on the pose and everything. And then we started the painting. By this point, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. So Tim and I went to sleep. Tim would sleep for a while, and I'd paint. And we worked it like that, and we did it in 36 hours. We timed ourselves and brought it back in, in that time frame, because the film was coming out in a week. That's why they called us. Partly why they called us was that we came through overnight once for the Young Frankenstein poster. That's why I say my books is
Gotcha.
And that. Boom. So the whole thing goes through the ceiling then. That's how that happened. Yeah. It was a fluke. It was literally a fluke. It was like completely, from left field somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think anyone saw that the success of that film coming at all.
Oh, no. Well, again, they didn't see it, these guys. And Tim and I were talking with ourselves on the way back on the train. Comic booky, what the hell does that mean? Mm-hmm. They're not talking ink outline with flat colors, because that's what comic coloring was at that point in the 70s, right?
Right.
And so he doesn't want that. They don't want that. What the hell do they want? Well, more contrast in color, more warm and cool contrast. Mm-hmm. And that's what we were developing through the ring stuff and everything. And we had just started doing our own Ursharak novel. We were painting some of the pictures out of it. But the irony of it was, when we went to pick up the job, Tim and I had been developing our own story, Ursharak. Aelwan, the elf prince, all in white with the magic sword, the wizard, the evil death lord of Golgarath, Torgon, who is Aelwan's ancestor. And we finally get to Torgon's domain. Torgon is a 7-foot tall, black-robed, black-armored, completely covered face with horns, or more medieval-esque exaggeration, giant mace. We had already painted that picture. So we get there to New York and start to look at all these 8x10s, and when there's Gene's phone ringing. Wait a minute. That's Gene's phone.
That's Gene's ringtone.
Awesome. I love it.
Absolutely incredible. I love it.
But so I'm like perplexed in this, and this is for real. And on top of that, we have our allied band of people who've gathered together to go fight the bad guy. And we have a 7-foot tall Sasquatch character who's a member of the band. Ulu. Yeah. Ulu, we called him. And we get there, and they're showing us all this stuff. And I'm saying, what the hell? This is like weird. This is like completely impossible. Because there was nobody had seen our work. We hadn't seen their work. It was just me and my
collective unconscious, man.
It was totally bizarre. So in the end, we had to take the helmet off of our Death Lord, because the film was out. The book wasn't coming out for another year. Mm-hmm. Everybody would say, "Oh, you just swiped it from Star Wars."
Yeah.
So we had to reduce crazy. Our Sasquatch got like about 3 feet tall.
which actually is quite a nice connection going back to Mel Brooks, because when he did Spaceballs, which of course
Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis, and he was like really little, wasn't he?
That's a helmet.
Oh dear, I love Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks.
That's the Star Wars poster story right there.
That's insane.
Well, that's see that poster was the main release poster for the UK, and I didn't go. I didn't live in London then. I grew up in Devon, but. The cinema in London where Star Wars premiered is now a theatre, the Dominion Theatre, just at the bottom of Tottenham Court Road, and you can see all this footage of all the queues going up the street because people were just queuing, for block after block, and B, you've got this massive great poster that you guys did, just like 17 feet tall by 35 or whatever it was. Absolutely crazy. And I didn't put two and two together until I was kind of researching for this thing, because of course I grew up with it.
So it's like you can see the likenesses. There's no likenesses to the two principals. They said don't worry about likenesses, that nobody knows who these people are.
At
that point, right? So don't worry, because they didn't give us headshot. You need the lighting on the head to get the structure.
Yeah, to get the.
They just had different lighting setups, and I couldn't. I tried to make it look like them, but forget about it. I mean, you had the time frame too was like so fast.
36, man, that's insane. That's
it's interesting, that first wave of action figures for that movie. I don't think the likenesses were that good for a very similar reason.
Right.
Because of course, A, the technology to mold things, and B, the fact that they probably working off the same as you had, if not less. So I'm going to fast forward. So when did you first? Because we know Marvel Masterpieces came out in '94, but had you done Marvel work yourself and your brother before '94? How did it come about? Can you tell us about what was the process between you signing up?
Well, I mean, the way it happened was I hadn't looked at comic books for a while. From the 50s probably, because in terms of. I was like every other kid in my time frame. I was born in '39, so that's what we had: comic books and radio, and Saturday matinees and the movies. And so, but I think the last comics that I was aware of were Joe Kubert's tour, back the 3D stuff. Yeah. And then I moved into animation, was my main obsession as a kid in Tim's, and we moved in that. We get into film in Detroit. I'm from Detroit. I worked at an industrial film house in Detroit.
Oh wow!
The biggest in the country, actually. They made training films for the Air Force, training films for the Navy. They did films for U.S. Steel, Ford, GM, Campbell Soup, and animators from one directing animator when I was there from Disney, Paul Coulter. He worked on Fantasia, Snow White, Dumbo, Bambi, all the early stuff. And animators from Max Fleischer's studio. Max Fleischer was a friend to Jameson Handy, who started this company, the Jam Handy organization. And I didn't meet Mr. Fleischer, but some of his animators were still there. And
wow,
who was the supervising director of animation, was an old friend of his back to New York. And so Tim and I were 18, and we started our career there. So I got totally into film and animation, and I wanted to do special effects too. It was big George Pell, War of the Worlds, and
I love War of the Worlds.
And so that became our main obsession. So comics were something that were there as a kid. We drew many of them, but they kind of got lost, and then we went into these other directions. We did documentary filmmaking for 6 years, and then general illustration, kids' books primarily. Golden books and all kinds of stuff. And then finally, and I'm collecting all the while. I'm collecting old books and intentionally staying away from collecting comic books, because I knew that obsessive collection thing the dam would break and I would go freaking nuts. You know what I'm saying? So I would collect, Rackham and Pyle and all the great illustrators, kids' books, Dulac and everybody. And then I was at a flea market here in Jersey, digging through a cardboard box of a bunch of comic books. And I just thought, should I touch this? Look at that. They're only $1. I mean, what the hell? So I'm flipping through them. I found a whiz comic, Captain Marvel, where he's running at you with the guys all running behind him.
Yeah.
It was $2. I said, I can't pass this up. So I bought the comic book, and that became it. The floodgate opened, and I was running around getting and collecting all the stuff from my childhood, the books from that time frame, and getting as many as I could, piling them all up, becoming obsessed with it, and starting to draw, again, comic characters, just like my mentality was to put myself back when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old and just draw Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman, because that's what I grew up with the whole DC universe, right? So the Marvel universe, the moon, other than Captain America, who I was drawing also, and I became friends with Joe Simon. He was fantastic.
Oh.
But doing those comics, I started to get into it. And I say to Jean, now we're in a relationship together, because she's been my agent now and business manager for a number of years, for a while by this point. And I said, I want to do something in comics. And she said, what? I said, I have no idea, but I want to do something in comics. So she called, we had met Stan Lee, Tim and I did, before I started working with Jean some years before, when he was doing Epic magazine.
Yes.
And they did an interview with us on Urshrak. So I met him then briefly, but then I kind of went out of contact with him. So Gene got his number, and I said I want to be in comics. Gene got his number, called him, asked him who was running Marvel now, because he was in Hollywood by this point.
Yeah.
And so he gave her Joe Calamari. Do you remember that name at all?
Yes.
Like Joe Squid, right? So we go in, and there's Joe with a can of squid on his desk and everything, which I thought was pretty cool. And Tom DeFalco, who was the editor-in-chief at that time.
Tom DeFalco. Yeah, right? That's great.
We go for the tour of the whole place. And I'm literally like a kid by this point. And this is like 94. And, I was born in 39. So I was not like a little kid. I had a long career by this point. You know what I mean? Done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I personally had a mentality that I was ready to go there and sweep floors if I had to prove myself that I could do this stuff. You know what I'm saying? But they rolled out the red carpet. They literally rolled out the red carpet. I went over to DC first. I forgot. I think I went to DC first. I did one cover for them for the Spectre. But they had a cooler attitude because they already had who they wanted. I think Alex Ross at that point. So they didn't need a painter. You know what I'm saying? I think it was sort of like that. But Marvel, they went like nuts, and they just kind of said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I have no idea. I said, I want to do something here. I don't know what it is exactly. So then Tom said to Gene and me, well, let's think about it. So the next day he called and asked if we would like to do this Marvel Masterpieces set.
Wow.
So this is before Tim and I split for a while. We weren't working together for a number of years, and we weren't working together at this time. We were talking and being friends, and he was doing his stuff, and I'm doing my thing. And I wanted the whole plan was for me to do the whole set myself.
Wow.
And Gene, now I was completely unaware of the Marvel universe. I mean, I knew, I'm X-Men. I knew who they were. I knew the whole basic setup and everything, but I didn't know the details of who we should have in here, who shouldn't be in this set, because they kind of left it up a lot to Gene and myself to sort of do what we wanted to do. So Gene said, well, please, would you inform me about it? So they sent her every issue. Each week, stacks of Marvel comics were coming in.
Wow.
And he was reading every one of them in detail. I mean, hundreds of magazines, hundreds of them, and informing me about what was going on in the universe. So it became that kind of thing. So I laid out 100, what the hell was it, 160 something cards.
Yeah, it's a hefty number for sure.
And there's a deadline to all this. I mean, you're not doing this in your own good old time. You're racing through this.
Yeah.
Then Tim and I start to talk, and I said to Gene, well, maybe it wasn't because so much that I couldn't do the job. I felt I could have done it on time, but I just wanted to start to see what would happen with Tim and I working together again. We hadn't worked together for a long time. So I asked him if he wanted to be in on it. He said, yeah. And so we plunged into it. Most of the layouts were all done, roughs, those initial roughs, thumbnails, sort of like things.
Yeah.
Then we got models and posed models for everything. But through the rough stage, though, I was working with Bob Budiansky. He was the editor at that time in charge of the whole card project. And Bob was pushing me and really being really helpful as far as getting me more conscious about contemporary comics, do you know what I mean? And how to draw and everything. So I'm getting my art lessons from Bob while I'm doing the job at 40-something years old. So it was all pretty cool, you know? And so he's pushing me, and I'm going back and redrawing them. Finally, then we get them all pinned down. Then we get models, bodybuilders and whatnot. We shoot all these poses, hundreds of them, and literally start kind of like a production line, assembly line process to get them done on time because they kept pushing the deadline.
Right.
And so we daytime setups, you know, sunlight setups. It became a color and location, interior, exterior, red light, green light, blue light. We had all these lighting setups because that's how we work. You know, mix paint for all blue skies with white clouds. You mix that paint up and you paint as many sky down the line like that. You know, it really on that level like that, you know, dividing them up, working together, handing them to each other back and forth because we work side by side with a palette in the middle, you know, and just kind of like, and then when there were some bigger ones, like we had done with the rings, of course, we were painting on it at the same time. And midway into this project, I think it was halfway through it, we had our studio at that time. Gene had a publishing company, Unicorn Publishing, and we had it all set up together. And she opens the door up and says, guess what you're working on next? And I said, what? She said, Terry and the Pirates, a daily and Sunday strip. Michael Uslan, our friend, has just optioned it from Tribune Media, and he's developing it for film or TV. And he brought up the idea of doing a strip, bringing back the comic strip. So Gene said, I told him yes, and he went and done the deal. And I said, what? I freaked out. Both Tim and I freaked out. It wasn't like that we were afraid of the work. It's like Milt Kniff to Tim and me. You know, we were growing up in the 40s.
Wow.
Every kid on the block who drew was copying those dogfight scenes and copying Terry. I mean, you know, and so it would be like, I can't walk in one of the God's footsteps. What the hell? This, you know? And she said, so it doesn't matter. It's a done deal. So Tim and I just went crazy. And then we said, well, we're copy his style. No, Mike Uslan, he doesn't want you to do that. Do your own thing with it. Just draw it any way you want. So that was going on at the same time.
Wow.
So wow. You know, I don't know if you see it. It's a realistic strip, for God's sakes. It isn't just like, you know, machines and hardware. It was hugely elaborate. I totally went nuts over it. I mean, I was totally into it 1,000,000%.
Wow.
And very, very exciting. You know, there was an energy level to that. And then we'd be jumping back and forth. We'd be working on the paintings and then stop half a day and then work on the strip. And it was like that. But that's a whole other story. The strip is a whole other story. That's a whole completely different thing. That's like, because we were, it's different from the point of view that, many points of view that, first of all, you can't walk in God's footsteps, one of the God's footsteps. I'm of the generation that grew up on that, on Terry and Kniff. And once the word got out into the world that we were doing it, oh my God, the reaction from the fandom, guys my age and older, you know, they were like, you can't do this. That's profaning a sacred object. How can you do this? And on top of it, Tribune Media told Mike Uslan that, you know, you don't go back to the 30s and do this, or the 40s. You don't set it back then. We want it updated. So it had to be contemporized into which drove the super fans, me included, kind of like, oh, what? I wanted to go back into the 30s and do it. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to do, go back to what I remember from the very early stuff. No. So it had to be contemporized. So, all right, what do we do? Pat Ryan. Oh, give him a stubble. The Indiana Jones thing. You give him a stubble. They went nuts with it. Terry, flat top of the earring. Give Terry. Oh my God, that was like overwhelming. It was like, so we're getting all this flack from everybody. Shel Dorf, who was the letterer on Steve Canyon, he was excited by it. He thought we were doing well. He wanted to do the lettering on it, which was not possible. He was in California. We needed to get this done fast. We needed a letterer here. And Kenny Lopez did the lettering. He was incredible. And so we were fighting this battle with ourselves, that God's Footsteps, contemporizing it, and these people out there, plus Tribune Media says push the envelope to Mike. So we have the Dragon Lady, for example, on one set of, and Pat Ryan on one set of, with their love-hate relationship that they had, on one set of dailies, arguing with each other across the room, long shot. Next Monday, Tuesday, a little closer. By the time Friday comes, it's a single panel of them open mouth kissing. And the freaking world went nuts. You're getting all these letters. What's this? French kissing in the comics? I said, well, there's no French kissing. He's American and she's Vietnamese. So the LA Times canceled the strip because of the protest movement.
Oh, wow.
It was like insane. There was this huge uproar. I wanted to keep the strip. It became undoable because they only got it into like 40 newspapers. And you couldn't make it doable unless, it was the storytelling strip day had come to an end, more or less.
Yeah.
And so but anyway, so that's all going on too. At the same time, we're doing the Marvel trading card stuff.
Well, it's crazy because there's so much. I mean, obviously there was so much innovation in the strip happening, but you also innovated quite a bit of the Marvel masterpieces and like the pieces in there as well, especially the superheroes. Like, I think out of everyone's set, your and Tim's set really had kind of stand out above so many, right? There was an aesthetic to it, right? Like Jusko had this realism comic book stuff. 93 had this really good mixture of everybody. Such a good piece. I keep my keep my surfer on the wall.
Oh no, and you've got your blur.
I'll take
on.
it off.
That's why. If I turn this one over.
I went back, man. I said, who am I going to look at? It's like there were so many great artists by this point in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
By the time we started this, I said, what the hell did we do here? Jim Lee was already, and everything. The Kubert, of course, my God. And I said, I'm only going to look at one person. Not that I want to copy him, but I'm only going to look at one artist, and that was Jack Kirby. Why not? He was like, there it is.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, that's all I would look at, more or less. You know what I mean? Doing the set. But then it became angles, push the light, color, and light in contrast.
Color and lighting is
the
just
lighting.
It's insane.
It's the Professor X just in that bottom corner. Can you see that? I just sums it up for just the lighting on these, which I know you've referenced as well.
It's composition is number one.
Yeah.
Drawing number two. Color and light number three. I mean, but composition, everything. What's the structure of that picture within the picture plane to give the most punch to it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the drawing of it, how well drawn is it? Then light and color. Lighting is critical. I mean, I can't draw or paint a picture or even conceive a picture without thinking about how the hell it's lit.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense too, because you're coming from the background of film and animation, especially that being something that's so integral and important to your work. I mean, that's the thing I've always noticed about the set. I would say probably 94 is one of the most cinematic sets because it has that kind of depth and color and composition and framing, right? I mean, that's all film work.
Well, you get that from the Captain America. I mean, which they used on this. I don't know how well you can see that, but
like all these
the
look like movie posters. Yeah. 100%. You see all this stuff. Like, I mean, the thing that always flipped me out about the Surfer, my set's behind me locked away, but the thing that always flipped me out about this, which happens a lot in all of your pieces, is your color composition. Like, I've never seen purple and orange in this space. You know what I mean? That's like molten. It's just crazy decisions that were just so they worked, because I've seen your pieces big, because we've had friends in our group who've purchased pieces from you, and you're always so awesome, and you've taken pictures with them, and we've seen their work, your work in their hands, and all this really cool stuff. But when you see your pieces big, they are just epic, lush, vibrant. And then when they are printed small, like on the trading cards, they're just as lush and vibrant, which doesn't happen. It doesn't that very often doesn't happen.
I think, that's part of like being in film, like you say, in animation, you're thinking you've got, and then in reduction, I've always painted, I've been an illustrator and I know how it's going to look reduced down. And Joe Kubert always said that, I taught at his school for a while. As Joe said, your picture should be drawn with the idea in mind that you're going to reduce them or enlarge them huge. So that all that line work shows up and everything, So one way or the other. But I think, you think in those terms. I remember when I was at Jam Handy's in Detroit, everybody had like a reducing glass, You'd look at your work through a reducing glass.
Wow.
So that it all got down small. So what did it look like? And even now still, I'll shoot something, Gene will shoot something with, on the thing, and you'll see it on a screen, small, and in a different context.
Yeah.
Instantly you see stuff.
Yeah.
It's context is everything too. You I don't know what it is, the space that you're working in. I think for me, if I'm here sitting and working, and if I pick the painting up and go into another room and set it up and look at it, I see stuff that I didn't see in that room over there. Now, what the hell is ever going on with that? I don't know, But
I'm sure it's a couple of things, right? The lighting, but also like the same thing for like when you write, right? When you read your own drafts over and over again, you're basically reading what's in your head. You're not reading on the page. So right. I'm sure that's a similar thing. Yeah. Giving yourself that cognitive distance. That's wonderful. Wow. So,
but I think, you're right. It's all the photography, because we were obsessed with photography. We did photography, film, literally. Movie photography for what we did for several years, actually, believe it or not.
Well, it's one of the interesting things. I don't know how much you kind of see what's going on with the cards. I mean, I know you've worked on some more recent Upper Deck sets, which I'll come on to, because I do want to talk about especially Fear Ultra X-Men. But of course, Marvel Masterpieces, the 11th set has just come out, and it's Dave Palumbo, Julie Bell's son, who's painted it, and we spoke to him for the podcast a couple of months ago, and he's joined the group, and he's really brilliant at engaging with people. But one of the things that he's taken a lot of time to kind of do is that he does a lot of photography. He's got a really good collection of classic cameras, when he's been selling the original pieces on his website, and for each piece he mounts it on an easel, and you can see his camera collection behind them, which is quite a nice little touch. But you can really see that he's come at it with the eye of a photographer in terms of the work that he did with the models that he got for the set, and in terms of the way that he's composed them and built them. And it really comes through when artists have that kind of sensibility and that angle that they come at it at. And I can't think of any other set on the Masterpieces run other than yours that really every piece literally shines throughout, but it has that kind of eye of the camera.
Yeah.
It
really does.
That's the whole. That's exactly. I'm always, it's like, where do I want to be? Do I want to be here? Do I want to be looking down? Is it 3-point perspective? Where's my finishing points? It's always, that's all going on,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Wow.
And it's one of the things we spoke to very early on for the podcast. Our first guest was Dave DeVries. And he does that very forced perspective style in a lot of his work. But one of the things he was saying, because he teaches now, and he spoke about the way the eye travels through the painting and through the image. And he literally walked us through it. And for me, that was a massive education. And so every time I go back and look at other sets now, I kind of learn more about appreciating what we're seeing in the sets from the people that we've spoken to. And so,
I think that's the thing that Marvel cards has that a lot of the other cards don't have, like Pokemon and Magic. I mean, they have beautiful artwork. All of that artwork is gorgeous. But they're, what's really primarily featured on a Marvel card is the artwork. Yeah. Right. It surpasses the character, it surpasses their bio, the power meter. It really is the physical, the space of the art.
Especially masterpieces.
Yeah. And it's especially masterpieces, which is the hallmark set for featuring art from artists. I think that's just fantastic. Yeah.
That whole thing about composition that DeBreeze you say is talking about is like primary. I mean, that goes back to Howard Pyle, number one, composition, number one, period, end of story. Then everything else is secondary to that. Because you could have the most beautifully painted picture in the world, but if the primary center of interest is way over here in the corner somewhere, you know what I mean? It just, if you get it right where it's supposed to be, the Greek thing, we kind of like, the whole golden rectangle.
Rules the third, magnetism of frame.
You stick to that kind of, you know what I mean? Initially I would measure it out and everything. Tim and I both would.
Yeah, that's right.
And coming from Andrew Loomis, and magnificent books that I had since I was a kid, and all that stuff, you stick to that, and that's the main thing that you stick to, especially for this kind of work.
Yeah,
and you're not doing. I'm not saying off-center like Degas, those beautiful things that you. It's like you came on a scene and you took a snapshot. So you want that sense of realism too, which is beautiful. The off-centeredness, but. For me, with that particular card set, that was not the issue. The issue was that, bam, primary center of interest, secondary, third, fourth. You lead the eye in a circle, the triangle shape, within a circle, within a square. All that stuff's going on,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, you have to too, right? Because masterpieces, in a way, it's like comic book covers. Right. It's just a series of comic book covers. And that's what you're looking for, is that punch, that graphic weight, that kind of symmetry or not asymmetry, like that kind of work. Yeah.
And you have, what is it? The measure. I remember when we were doing we did a lot of paperback covers before this, back in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have what fraction of a second to grab attention on a bookshelf?
Yeah.
It's got to be it's not like, what is the, you can't go in, I can't see, I got to figure out, I see what's going on there. No, it can't be that. It has to be.
The readability has to be quick, and then exploration comes later. But yeah, yours does do that, though. I mean, that's what's always impressed me a lot, is not only is it cinematic, but it's cinematic in the way where you get the punch, you get the graphic weight, you see the piece, it's readable, right? But then your eye can wander, and then you get the extras and the colors and the space and the depth, and it becomes very much an experience. I mean, that's the thing Ian and I talk about all the time, which is why we did the podcast, is that, we're grown men. We've collected cards since we were kids, jobs, families, all that stuff. But it's nice because it's weird how the cards always keep giving, right? You can go back into the collection, look at the cards, and there's something new to discover there. As strange as that might be from the outside, but all that work that you've done and your brother did is there.
Well, it's fantastic to hear that from Mike's side, because you don't know. You're sitting in a room, you're obsessed with your thing, and you're doing it. How does it, is it registering? Is it you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it mean anything? Is it worthwhile? Is it relevant? Is it all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
It's good to hear that, it registers that, it's fantastic to hear that.
Well, we've got guys that are coming into the group now who are just getting started and just discovering the sets, and so they're kind of going through what people did when they were teenagers, when they were kids, when they people discover it at different points. And
similar to how you were collecting comics and got back in that nostalgia.
And I think it's interesting. It's with, especially with the 92 set, the 93 set, and the 94 set were produced in such large quantities. I mean, there were hundreds of thousands of them printed. It is an accessible, and it's a very affordable way to kind of to own really beautiful artwork. One of the other interesting things about it is that you get that time to look at the card and all the things Norrin just said. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but then your imagination kicks in, because I did it just now when I was looking at those few that I got out. is you kind of imagine, okay, that's a snapshot of a scene.
Yeah.
Okay, what just happened before that? What just happened after that? What's just out of frame? So did you do much of that? Because different artists have done that, and some do more world building than others around what's happening.
There's a lot of that, figuring out what the hell's the story.
Yeah.
What's going? I mean, you just can't what's exactly what you just said, before, middle, after. You have to kind of like have a story in your head of what's going on. For every picture I do, I mean, whether it's the pinup art that I do, the girl stuff and everything, I'm thinking of a story.
Yeah.
Kind of what's, it's like, that's the way I think. And I think that's like, that comes from, the film and animation background and everything. But I can't, and I've read a lot and I illustrate a lot of books. So you know what's happening,
Yeah.
You got to know what's happening. Got to know what's happening.
Well, I've seen you do those pinups on,
well, what's the personality of the character? What's that character like? Who is he or she? What do they think and be and act like? You got to know.
It's so important, though. I mean, that's so important. You can't.
You're just drawing, only stereotypes. Bum 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 bum. You have to kind of like, you got to be into it too.
Yes.
Well, you've got to bring forth the character that you're portraying, haven't you? You've got to bring them forth, and everyone will have different, their own interpretations of the characters. But let's touch on Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, for the longest time, until I'd read it as a teenager, I kind of almost consciously, and I still do this, avoided visual representations of the characters until I'd read the books, because I wanted to kind of let the words come to part, and now it's like the number of different interpretations. Obviously, there's the work that you guys did. Alan Day is that the artist I'm thinking of, who did the work for a long, and then that carried through into the work that Peter Jackson did. It's just phenomenal. Well, did you work on any
The Hobbit in 1969? And and we said, we should illustrate this someday. Like we got to illustrate this. It was like that kind of thing. We were doing film at the time, and then we got into general illustration of all kinds of stuff. And it was, we should illustrate this. And then finally, then we read The Rings. We said, we got to illustrate this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Tim Kirk, do you remember that name? He did a calendar. Ballantine Books here was using the art of Tolkien stuff.
Yes.
And then they put out this calendar, Tim Kirk. He was more, at that time, called a fan artist,
Yeah.
And in the back of it, they asked for, they had a little blurb that said, that requested any artists interested in interpreting The Lord of the Rings to contact them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Tim and I, we called the art director, Ian Summers. Again, those are the days you could call people when he answered the phone. And Ian said, yeah, come on in. So we had our general portfolio showed that we were professionals, what we work. And then we had a bunch of sketches, the principal characters, the hobbits and Gandalf and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we were the only professionals that showed up. Ian, in his office, he had all these stacks of artwork from high school kids and college kids, fans, like fan art. It was all fan art, not demeaning that. I'm just saying, but there were no professionals because at that time, we started the first calendar, and then I was at an art studio once picking up another job, and the then head of the Society of Illustrators, president of the Society of Illustrators happened to be there, and he said, what's this stuff? And I said, well, The Lord of the Rings is fantasy. He said, well, yeah, it looks like, what's that guy's name? Franzetti? Like he literally, then president, 1976, of the Society of Illustrators, wiped all this fantasy art off the table as trash, shit, junk, crap, sub art. I don't know why. I mean, it's like comic art was always treated, right? Like that same junk. And I didn't know why. I mean, amongst illustrators in the city, generally speaking, that was the attitude towards it. That's
so bizarre.
Kid thing, whatever. And back then too, I mean,
we were just talking to Bianchi actually, and he is doing an exhibit where he's showing the comic book art and the mythos of superheroes and so forth in museums in Italy and art galleries in Italy that usually have some of the most elaborate and famous pieces of work. And it's a great way to show how this context is building around this art form now, because, you know, the world has completely changed from people frowning on professional artists doing sci-fi because, you know, sci-fi, it's amazing, you know, or like horror or all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, I grew up, again, like I say, my career started in 1958. So I'm well aware of the attitude towards this kind of work that people have, which is bizarre and insane to me. And you get into these arguments, well, what the hell is the Sistine ceiling, for God's sakes? Like, we talk about mythology and imagination in whatever you want. I mean, go way back, Iliad and the Odyssey, for Christ's sake. It's like, overwhelmed. What's the distinction? I don't get it.
Yeah. There's a weird gatekeeper thing that was happening a long time ago. And now it's kind of slowly gotten away from that, immensely have gotten away from that, because a lot of people who grew up, you know, who are in our age range are in charge of these studios, and they're getting, you know, their own credibility and their productions and stuff like that are like, oh, we love this stuff. We look at Hildebrandt where we're like, yeah, well, this is the iconic stuff, right? Yeah.
It was crazy. Perplexing as hell to me. I could never get it in back then. And it was like so derided. But comics too, right? The comic book burning. I can remember the comic book burnings, you know, 1955. Comic book burnings, you know. It's like Nazi Germany, for God's sakes. I mean, you know, to say nothing of what's going on.
It's the same thing as it's the same as you remember actors in the 70s and 80s. It was like, if you did movies, they'd be like, you can't do television,
right?
You can't do, you know, you can't change lanes like that. And now you get these amazing shows where you have, like, Fargo is a prime example, where you have these amazing talents who are seamlessly crossing genres, and a lot of it is led by the writing. I mean, the quality of writing these days in television, especially the cable networks, is just, you know, flawless.
Formatting,
Vince Gilligan, your David Chase, you know, Sopranos, people like that. It's just wonderful stuff. Have you? Because I know you do obviously the kind of more portraiture and cover artwork. Did you ever do sequential art? Did you ever actually do aside from the strips? Did you actually do any?
A couple of books. One, and I wish I would have done another one, but I mean, they wanted us to do a X-Men 2099 book at Marvel, which was weird. It was like a short-lived universe. You know what I mean? It didn't last at all. It was a lot of work. It's all painted. And then I did one Superman book. Walt Simonson wrote it, and then Tim and I painted it. The only problem was we had to get another artist to help us finish it off. And I know that's very common in the world of comics, right? Multiple people. But Tim and I either worked alone for all of our life or together, and I couldn't deal with working with another artist. I just couldn't. I don't know. It's like a very tough thing to think. You know, I can't think of penciling and then somebody else comes and puts ink on it. I don't, you know, it's not something that I can think of very well.
It's just your DNA. It's how you put together. So
it's like what I got used to, you know. It's I've never worked in that world, and I mean, it amazes the hell out of me. But it's like, and I know a lot of comic artists, for God's sakes, but it's fantastic. But it's like a whole glitch thing I just can't deal with.
Well, you also did like the assembly line animation thing, right? The Disney studio, that kind of thing when you were doing the paintings, which is just phenomenal.
I started in like I say, in 58 at this company with Tim and I both as assistant animators, working on storyboards and on production design, and in those days it was all paper and pencil and markers and ink, and you know what I mean, colored pencils, Prismacolor pencils. I mean, that's what we worked with. That's what everybody worked with. And you did it all yourself. I mean, and then it moved into a group thing. I mean, it moved towards now you're into you design the whole thing, and now you got to work with painters to paint the backgrounds with you. Back then, you know what I'm saying? But later, then just Tim and I working together for so many years, it became like, I can't handle that, you know? Yeah. Even though, like I say, initially I did it a lot of, you know?
Wow.
Well, it's how you're wired. It makes perfect sense to me.
100%.
So how long did it take you to, because I think it was about 160 pieces. I just looked at the checklist and it looks like 160. How long did it take you?
6 months of painting time.
Wow. So that's both of you working simultaneously.
Yeah, 6 months. And that's why I said we had to come up with this process. And then we were working on Terry and the Pirates at the same time within that.
Right.
So, but I was younger then.
Yeah.
Just get out of here. I've seen. Well, it's funny you brought up the pinups earlier. I saw a great video that you and Gene did. I was mesmerized. But you were drawing the pinup on the side of a. I'm so bad with aircrafts.
Yeah, that plane. I thought several of them.
That was crazy. Yeah, well, I noticed that later. Yeah, that was so awesome to see that kind of like the speed in which you were doing and the layers. Wow. That
they in the Second War, the guys were painting those pinups on the plane with not only girls, but they're cartoon characters, all kinds of stuff. But they would slap those things up there with Sherman-Williams house paint because they could be shot down the next day. There was no attempt at real refined painting. If you see it, Then one guy, somebody that we knew, somebody who knew somebody that knew this man who had this collection of World War II fighter planes, warbirds and bombers and fighter planes. And in Texas, this guy, he had like 52 planes.
Wow.
And in the hangar, so he contacted us, and then Gene worked it out with him, over the phone. He had a P-38 Lightning. You know that plane?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I do.
Fuselage, long body, short center, and beautiful plane. And he had one, and he wanted this painting. He had photos of the original art that was on the plane. It was a girl lounging back with a see-through negligee on, and with lettering that said "Thoughts of Midnight," and then the pilot's name. And he wanted that redone on his plane. It was no longer there. So I said, that pose looks real familiar to me, knowing pinup art to some degree. So I looked through some old magazines of mine, some Esquire magazines from 1941, 2, or whatever, and it was a Vargas girl in the magazine. That because that's what the guys did on those planes. They would go to Esquire or
right.
The Alvgren calendar, Gil Alvgren calendars, or Moran or Moser, and take them from the magazines or from the calendars and put them on, do their take on them on the plane. So that's what this was. So I said, well, that's Vargas. And he said, oh, he didn't even know what it was, the owner.
Right.
So I said, but I don't want to copy. It's kind of an internal thing. I don't want to copy Vargas's picture. Can I pose my own model in that same pose, but just so I know that it's my model that I So he said, fine. So I did that. And then we drew the picture here in Jersey, shipped it, via the electricity here, sending it to him. And he approved it finally. And then we got all of our paint together and mixed everything. I got all what I needed for the job, shipped it all to his hangar out in Eagle Pass, Texas. It's right near the border. And we get there, and I did a drawing, which I then blew up to the size, took all the careful measurements of the plane. It's like 7 feet across, or something like that.
Whoa.
And we get there, and I walk into the hangar for the first time, and I'm in awe. It's like, oh my God, I was drawing these airplanes when I was a kid, from Terry and the Pirates. And here they are.
Ah, that's right.
There was that sense, because I can remember the war. It's like I was 39. So at 5, I can remember my uncles coming back from the war and everything. So that was all a very real thing that I can still remember,
Yeah.
And to see these planes, to be with them, and to have they knew the owner knew the entire history of the plane and how many missions it was in, and the pilot. Oh my God, it was incredible. And
wow.
he was able financially to maintain these 50-something two planes with a fleet of mechanics in a beautiful hangar that he had seen in England. He was in England years ago, and I don't know from what town, but it was a smaller type setup that he reconstructed in Eagle Pass, Texas. Wow. So this reconstructed hangars, grouping of 3 or 4 buildings, and they were beautiful. And then you see these planes. Anyway, so that I did that first one. These guys have fly-ins, they get together, they go and show off their airplanes to each other. And another guy from Texas saw that plane. He had to have one. So he
was like, nah, I can't have Jim over there next door have this, and I can't have this. I'm not doing it.
Anyway, but they're a trip. I mean, you got to, because you're dealing on a surface that's curved.
Yeah.
And this way. And so you got to get the drawing transferred onto the plane, and you're painting it like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I saw the video of you doing it. I was like, it's such an intimate process to be like that close to that machinery and that precious of a piece of history. Just phenomenal content. Really amazing.
Yeah, and you got to get back from it too in these hangars, 120 degrees inside, because I painted them in the summertime, and they had air conditioning units blowing at us. You know what I mean? So it was dual, but you have to get way back. You have to crawl down you're up on a scaffold to do this too. And the procedure, but I like the physical process of doing stuff. It's like people have, do you ever think about working on a computer doing art? I think, what the hell? I mean, I like this thing. I like to get you know what
into
I mean?
it. Well, we've seen you you're in your studio and in all your gloriousness in the main space of your work, sir. So you get down and dirty for sure.
Standing and sitting, right?
Well, it's that T-shirt that you had that was covered in paint. And I mean, did you sell it or something, or raffle it off? I can't remember now.
But I mean, I get old T-shirts, and you're painting, like you're mixing and trying to get the paint off the brush and stuff like that. So you end up covered with paint. I started with rags on my lap once, and it just got over my clothes.
Like, nah, rags are for chumps. I'm doing T-shirt. I'm doing full. Well, I was going to ask you, so how big were the Marvel Masterpiece canvases? Because I've seen you work on massive pieces, but I've seen a few originals here and there, but I've never seen like how big they are.
A lot of them were painted, just normal, 8x10 copy paper size.
Wow.
20% maybe were painted bigger, depending on the subject, how much was in the picture, and the possibility that they might want to use some of these for posters. So it went like that. They varied. The size varied, and that was all. They were all painted on Duron board, which is like a high quality masonite, very high quality pressed wood panels. That's what that all was painted on. That's what we painted on string.
Wow.
Did
that help with the color? Like what? Like that?
The color had nothing. Then the color. The surface is real hard, and you put several coats of white gesso and you sand it, so it gets to a very nice surface. And it's a very hard, non-absorbent surface. Right. So that we were used to painting. That's what we did all the ring stuff on. So it's about we get used to painting on what kind of surface. And the only reason I started painting on that board was I'd read because I have very limited art education. I read an article in Horizon magazine. I don't know if you remember Horizon. It was a art book. They're magnificent. They're magazines, but they're a hardcover. They were on the arts of, you name it, history, contemporary, everything. And there was an interview with Andrew Wyeth, who I like a lot, that he painted on masonite panels. Huh. That sounds good. That sounds right. So
I mean, it's good enough for him. It's good enough for me.
I'll have some of that. Thank you.
So that's why he ended up on masonite. That's why he ended up. But masonite and shipping it, people buying art gets so damn heavy.
Yeah.
Creating and get to crate it and everything. So finally, then I said, well, what the hell? Let's go to the traditional, back to canvas. I hadn't painted on canvas in a long time. So now I'm painting on canvas. You got a very fine grain canvas, and then you sand it even to get it smoother if you want it smooth,
Oh,
so
wow.
but the Marvel stuff was all painted on
tricks of the trade. There's a wonderful photo on your Instagram feed, and I think it must be from back in the day, '94, when you were painting them, because you're painting it, but in the background are all the preliminary pieces, like literally like tiled up behind it, and they're fantastic. And I know that at least I know where some of those ended up, because I have here a copy of Cards Illustrated magazine from this is from February 1995, and this caught my eye on a previous episode, so Noreen will have heard this, but I never kind of figured we'd have a chance to mention this to you. So they have this section, and the winner is and it's people who won The winners of the Hildebrandt contest, in which entrants were to draw their favourite Marvel character and have their entries judged by the Hildebrands. Do you remember doing that?
Kind of.
Statute of limitations has passed if it was someone else who did it for you. That's okay. Were Barbara Perry from Burleson in Texas, who received the pencil sketch of the Legacy card. So she obviously won the original sketch. And then someone won the Nebula, and then someone won. Pass. I can't quite see who that is because my eyes are terrible. Jean Grey. There we go. So did a lot of those things go for promotional purposes, or do you keep stuff? Because some artists we've spoken to keep all their works, some don't.
Yeah, we keep it all. I mean, I used to give it all away. I was just a boy giving it all away. Wasn't that a lyric in a song?
Yeah.
And that's what I did because I never thought about it because back then there was no second value to stuff, right?
Of course, yeah.
Before, I mean, when I was starting, there was once the job was done, it was over with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just throw it away. We would bring things into the art directors, and they would stick them in a closet, or somebody would take it home, or they would just throw them all. So, but
I'm getting a headache. I'm feeling dizzy from that. I want this.
Well, it's ephemeral stuff, isn't it? You know, that's why especially the early comic books, they weren't made to be kept for years and years. They were meant as periodicals, literally.
It's all junk, you know. It's junk. Yeah. The comic strips, you read them once and you roll up your garbage in the newspaper and throw it away. You know what I mean? It's like that treatment. That was the mentality of it. And the same with illustration. You know, what are you? It's merely an illustration. You remember that kind of put down? What is this? Comic book cutout characters. Merely an illustration. Go yourself. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but before Gene, there's BJ and AJ. Before Gene, after, and once Gene says, no, nobody's getting anything. I mean, everything, man. You know, everything. And not this, that she wasn't with me when I did the Star Wars poster because we never ended up with that. You know, even though you never signed an agreement with anybody that claimed that they stated that they own the actual object at all. There's nothing like that. Yet there was a kind of a conversation that amongst us stupid illustrators, you brought it in, they owned it. They owned it. Well, no, they didn't. I don't know if you know Vinny D. Fate. He was back in the day, Vincent, a great artist, science fiction, and he was working for artist rights and everything. And trying to tell us, no, don't bring your damn painting in. Take it to a photographer. Let them shoot the chrome of it and give them the chrome. Don't give them the painting. Smart. Well, that's what Jean started doing. She said, the hell with this crap. She kept everything. You know what I mean? So, well, we saw it. I mean, I don't believe in. There are many artists, you know, that don't like to sell their work, and that's their choice to do that. Yeah. You know, you don't want to sell. And I respect that completely. For me, I mean, I'd rather have people enjoying it than it being stuck in a drawer somewhere in my house. I mean, it just doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And we in Gene, it's always made sure that everything's doable on all kinds of ranges for people.
Yeah, of course.
Like Gene's great about that. Well, the Spider,
Web art.
Yeah, just fantastic. And you guys did so much work with trading card prelims too. You had multiple different artists there and prelims that you kept track of. I mean, that was the first spot I found.
Yeah, Gene repped a lot of artists. Wow. Now it's down to just mainly me and a couple other people. Mainly, she repped a lot of people. You know?
Great work.
Yeah, no, it is.
Gene is a genius level person. You know, she just entered this with absolutely. She and her brother started Unicorn Publishing. They had never printed anything, nothing. They just started it and figured it out. You know, there's no history before that at all. But in the same with her as a rep and as a business person, she's freaking incredible. She's very creative.
Yeah,
you know? That's good. Amazing.
Well, you know, keeps it.
We appreciate her.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Seriously.
She's phenomenal. I'm gonna fast forward in time here. I'm gonna hold this up.
Oh, that's a couple of years ago.
That is. So what I'm holding in my hands, for the benefit of those who can't see us, which is most people, is the piece that you did for the Fleer Ultra X-Men 2018 set from Upper Deck, and I'm holding the lithograph that you got through their EPAC platform if you collected all of the parts, because this painting, this image was broken down into, I think, 9 cards, and then if you got all of those 9 cards, and you collected them on the Upper Deck platform, you got this fine piece here, which I will frame at some point. It's still in the original, very good quality top loader that they sent it in. So I'm curious to know, because obviously, 94's a while back, and I know that you did some work on other trading card sets in the 90s, Fleer Ultra X-Men, and I believe you did some work for one of the Spider-Man sets as well, but my encyclopedic knowledge is failing me.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in the Spider-Man stuff.
But
that's
then
white stuff too, right?
Would I be right in thinking that you kind of didn't touch anything else until Upper Deck came back, kind of for 2017, I think, Fleer Ultra Spider-Man?
Yeah, no, we didn't. As far as cards, no.
Yeah. So what was
Magic in some Harry Potter stuff we did.
Oh, of course, yes.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of Magic the Gathering cards, and then some of the Harry Potter stuff before the films,
Before, yeah. Did you do any of the because obviously once the films came out in the late 90s, early noughties, there were a plethora of Lord of the Rings trading card sets. Like some of them film based, some of them a real mix of film and art, and some of them just pure art. Did you do anything towards those at all?
No.
Was that would have been interesting if they'd come calling for some of your.
No, I mean, going back to the Rings thing, I mean, Judy Lindell Ray, who was the science fiction fantasy editor at Valentine, Lester Del Rey, the writer, her husband, they were the experts on the Rings. She said, we were doing the first calendar, she said, they don't like your work over there. And I said, no, I didn't. Okay. Well, just as a general flat rule, they didn't like anybody illustrating it, because Tolkien didn't like illustration, right? He didn't want people. And I totally get it as an author not wanting, I get it. I really get the conversation on his part, that he doesn't want somebody pinning it down. He wanted the reader to visualize it. I'm with that 1,000%. But at the same time, I'm over here too.
Yeah.
Robert Louis Stevenson loved illustrators, and he would write for apex moments for an illustrator to illustrate.
Yeah.
So you get these two different things, But no, they never liked it, and they never called us back. And finally, Jean now is working with me, and she saved all the drawings that I was about ready to throw out from the calendars. We just started working together, and I had them all crumpled up in my studio. These gigantic renderings. Some of them they're all done to the size of the drawing, because I didn't have a Xerox machine at that moment. And so we would do the layouts 3 feet across, 6 feet across. And I was ready to throw them all out. And she says, we had just the very first day of coming up to my studio and working together, she said, what's all that? I said, it's garbage. I'm going to be throwing that out. And she went over and started flattening them out. It was garbage. And she flattened them all out and rolled them all up and took them away. And she's mine. I said, no. And then we made an agreement, the Jersey contract,
Yeah.
Jersey contract. And she saved them all, and then years and years go by. I don't know how it was that. She did the art book. She had been working on an art book of these stuff for years, and she pulled out all these sketches and showed them to Tim and me. We hadn't seen them for like 20-something years. I said, what? I totally forgot about them. And they're all in the art book that she did with Watson Guptill. We all did. And my son wrote it, because he posed for the Hobbits back then. He wrote it from a point of view of his idea to get my son to write it as though he was trying to remember what it was like at that time, posing for it.
Right.
So he wrote it kind of like with that objective, with that idea. And still, the Rings, she called the estate. Forgot who else she talked to, somebody here in America, I think. And they said, no. They sent a letter. I forgot exactly the exact technicalities of it. She would remember the details. But they basically said, the Tolkien estate states that this work does not represent the Lord of the Rings at all. And in our minds, it does not represent the rings. So you can, you're free to do anything you want to with it. So they signed it back, any rights of reproduction over to it. Not that we can call it, we can't say this is Gandalf. Gene, in the book, though, you can state this is Greg and Tim's painting of Gandalf from the 1976 Tolkien calendar. You get me?
Right.
so you could state it that way, but you couldn't sell it as Lord of the Rings artwork, But in any event, so the estate, I don't think it was so much that they were against Tim and me as any artist interpreting it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and I get that.
Yeah.
If the creator felt that way, then I get it.
It's top down, isn't it? They probably all had the same mentality because that came down. So tell us about Upper Deck. Did they kind of approach you? Because I know you, obviously 2020 notwithstanding, I know you were still doing some cons and you would go and set up. So did it come about from them approaching you at a con, or how did that come about?
I forgot who the hell was the art director on the project, or the editor, who was really enthusiastic about working with me on it. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So they set that up. I started it, was it 2018? Is that what it was?
Well, this was the 2018 set, the X-Men one, yeah.
2018. I was painting it at New York Comic Con. I was at the con.
That's right.
You were.
The way that Gene's idea was that it would be a good attraction for me to paint live at these things, which became a whole other story. I said, I worked in studio setups and I worked around all kinds of people, so it's not like it's that intense, but it's distracting, but fun at the same time. I actually enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed the process because people would come up and you'd play with them and the kids would, and it was great. But I was working on that.
Yes. Well, we know this because we about 10 episodes back we interviewed Jennifer Wu from Upper Deck, and I believe she was the AD on that for you. Yeah. And she's got a photo of her and yourself at New York Comic Con, and the painting behind, massive. Painting bigger than I expected, and we dubbed it that she got to hug a Hildebrandt because she's there, with her arm around you. So we actually said to her on the episode, we said you're honoured, and she goes, "Why is that?" And it goes, "You got to hug a Hildebrandt." But it was fascinating, just kind of hearing about. Her kind of recollection of watching you create this piece.
And we did Tim and I did two other ones before the 90s. We did.
That's
two.
Right.
That's right.
Those are a bitch to work out. You know what I mean? Just in terms of making it work as a whole single composition, but then having it divided up. To make sure in each one of those sections work.
Yeah.
Anyway. But I always like challenges, and Tim like challenges. Like going back to that time frame when we did the '90s stuff along with Tearing the Pirates. It's like there's almost like, all right, you're ready on, you're ready to race. The gun goes off, boom, and it's like, can we get to the finish?
Yes.
There's a certain juice that gets established. Your excitement gets up to do that. It becomes.
Wow.
It seemed like back then for the both of us, the more impossible it was, the better it was.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Do you? I know you, because obviously you did the triple piece for 2017 Spider-Man, which I think was. Yeah. I think it was the symbiotes, wasn't it? Wasn't it Venom, Carnage, and
Spidey?
And Spidey. Oh, no. That's right. Yeah. No.
No, you're right. It's Venom, Carnage, and then Maximum Carnage or something like that. Right. I don't know. I'll look it up.
Yeah. God, I can't remember exactly.
I can't remember. Well, Simone Bianchi did one of those triptych panels as well. And yesterday, as we record, he very kindly did a live virtual kind of curation around his exhibition in Italy for the members of the Marvel Masterpieces group. So he live streamed onto Facebook. Because he acknowledges a lot of people would probably have made the trip to come over and see a lot of the work because it's on there for about a month, notwithstanding the complications of mounting something like that during 2020. A lot of the pieces there were some of the Marvel Masterpieces works that he did, but he had the original kind of landscape piece that he did that mirrored your one from Fleer Ultra Spider-Man, and I think he did Hobgoblin, Green Goblin. I'm looking at you now, Norrin. I can't remember exactly what the characters were, but
no. Okay, so he did Mysterio,
Here we go. I've got them here. I don't know why I'm fumbling.
Got him there. It's Mysterio, Electro, Spider-Man's in there, and I think it's Doc Ock.
There we go. That's it. That's it.
That? Wow, that was good.
You did. No. The one I'm thinking of, because when you lay it out in the 9-up, as Ken Bauer from Skybox instructed us to call them. So there's yours at the top.
Yeah.
So that's how they look like. The middle, of course, is Bob Larkin.
Yep.
Who's in our group. He's a lovely fella. And then at the bottom there's yours, and there's one more because they went to 12 cards, which is nice, but it's frustrating because then you have to start another page and it's just got 3 cards at the top. And for the life of me, I'm having is that KO Cacao?
Yes, it is.
It is
KO Cacao.
Who's an artist from South America, and his work is extraordinary. Do they send you? I mean, do you have actual like a set of any of the cards that you've worked on for Marvel? Do they comp you any?
Yeah, I've got some. I don't have all the stuff. You know what I mean? It's tough sometimes. Marvel, you slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of brilliance.
Yeah, I guess so. Well,
variant covers over the last couple of years. I've done tons of them, and it's like pulling teeth to get sometimes for them to remember to send the magazines,
the actual books.
But
I know you.
Don't get me wrong; they're great to work with. I love the people over there; they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I know you recently did some IDW Star Trek covers, and that was your. I can't believe it took you this long to work on Star Trek.
One cover, and they loved it a lot.
Yeah.
The Star Trek people, they proved it, and they liked it, and I said, well, I'll do some more. I'm a big Trek fan, It's big time,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. What the hell am I doing? I do so much stuff; it sort of gets lost in the. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How old are you? You're almost 82, and you're still working. When are you going to retire? It's
retire.
Like retire in from myself.
Yeah. But the thing is, this is one of the things I was going to. By the way, I don't. It's probably a good thing that you've not got all the cards, because that is only part of the Clear Ultra Spider-Man set from 2017. I mean, they are thick. They are a lot thicker than the ones that you had back in the 90s. I can tell you that.
In Comic Images, that's the card set that you were probably referring to before. Here in Jersey, they did the first card set that we ever did.
That's right.
Comic
Images, yeah.
Zeta, all kinds of people, right?
Yeah.
Zillions of them. I mean,
they did.
Every piece of artwork I ever did seemed that they had.
Comic Images, and then of course Impel, which then became Skybox, because we spoke to a couple of months back. We spoke to the marketing guy at Skybox, who was there for about 3 or 4 years. So I don't think he would have worked on your set. I think he worked on the 92 set with Just Go. He worked on a lot, and he actually did a lot of the press tour with Joe, and he was fascinating to talk to, because he was telling us like how they plan them and how they design them, and the way they laid them out, and it's
behind the scenes stuff.
Fascinating insight. Yeah. But one of the things I was going to ask, because obviously this is something that if you're an artist and you live and breathe it, and it's not something you do in the evenings. A lot of artists have day jobs, accountant, player, whatever, and then they do it in the evening. But you've been obviously very blessed that you've been able to do it as your day to day.
Make the right connections at the right time.
Yeah. So I always find it fascinating, and I asked this question of Julie and Boris, and their answer was wonderful. It is where does the art part of your day-to-day stop and the relaxing time start? Where, because you work at home, you don't commute. I mean, I have a feeling that was the same before, lockdown.
I had studios separate for a while, but I mean, close to the house and stuff. I mean, no.
So what do you do when you're not Greg in front of an easel? What's your hobby? You relax.
Regular routine. I mean, I'm a routine guy. I'm up in the morning. Gene and I'm up first. I go down, make coffee, the usual. We have coffee together. Then we get ready and we go to work. And she's in her office, which is where I'm right now. This is her office. And then I go 2 stories down into the basement, which I like, the subterranean depths, So we're and where computers are, where when the COVID thing is not here, then she has people that she employs that come in and work, and so I got my space downstairs, and I work till noon. Then I get up, we quit. Gene comes down. I feed the cats, do their lunch sit down, we eat. Quickly, they have 20 minutes or so. Go back upstairs. She comes back up, goes to work, or if she's downstairs working with a guy, she stays down there, works. I go down, I keep working till 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we stop and we feed the cats and we eat ourselves, and then depending, may go back to work for an hour or so, and maybe 20% of the time, and then stop, and sit down and do. Now we've been isolated since March.
Yeah,
we've not left our house except for several doctor's appointments. That's it. And so now, sometimes you'd go for a walk or you'd go out and you do whatever, but like a normal life. I mean, totally normal.
Yeah.
I sit down and I watch a movie, or we watch a series that we're on to. What the hell ever. We just watched a 3-part thing on Hercule Poirot with a new one. It's a 3-part movie.
Yes.
And it was great. So we sat down and we watched that for 3 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was on the BBC last year. My wife watched it. Another one.
I never stopped. I love that one on what the hell, the Sherlock Holmes' younger sister.
Oh, that was nice. Enola.
I love that.
That was sweet. It was a sweet movie.
Beautifully done.
Yeah, it's nice.
So I never, my man, as an artist though, you're like the Enola, and it's like, holy shit, look at the design. I'm always about, look at that beautiful setup.
Yeah.
Look, is that digital or is that live? I mean, now I can't tell anymore. You know what I mean? Before I could tell if it was a matte painting or a miniature or, matted together. But now so I'm like that. My mind's going. I'm absorbed with the story, but at the same time, running parallel is this observation of lighting, composition, all the usual shit that's in my head.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That never goes away. It's always there. It's like what's always there too. What's always there too is this: am I doing the right thing right now? Should I be working on something, even though the schedule, Gene, is very scheduled, everything is like this, and I know what I'm working on, there's an internal driving thing that, should I be doing something else that's more or better than this? Kind of like it's always there, you know what I mean? I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, you always, it's kind of... It's almost like the whole deadline thing about having to do it in 36 hours. It's like you're pushing yourself, if you like. I guess like athletes do in the when they're in their prime. You're constantly testing the limits of what you can achieve. And if it sounds to me like that drive is very much still there and is still part of you. Again, it's part of your DNA.
That's again going to a segue, but that's the beauty of age. Doesn't mean shit when it comes to art. The beauty of it. I mean, so many people in their life, sports, whatever. I mean, you have deadlines within that field. I mean, you can't. Here, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're 100 and you're still functioning, you're never. You have to try to stay relevant in a sense. Not try to stay. I don't mean like I try to stay. I mean, I think I'm interested in the world.
Yeah, you keep your context right.
I'm interested in new art and what people do, and it turns me out, it freaks me out, flips me out. Gene will constantly show me people's work, and I always get always get the sense of being sucked in the gut. Oh my God, that's overwhelming. Jeez, it's like you get like level devastated, and then you switch that around to enthusiasm and excitement.
Yeah.
But that never goes away. In fact, I tell kids that because they look at somebody else's work and they say, "Oh my God, I'll never do that. I can't. I'm quitting." I say, "No. Use that. Turn that around now to
inspire you."
Yeah. Take the devastation, the knockout punch, and then you're flattened all out. Like there's Muhammad Ali leaning over you, but don't get up.
But use it. Yeah.
And keep on trucking, baby.
Yeah. Do you
around.
I don't want to put you on the spot with this if you don't want to say anything, but is there anyone you can think of who's kind of really knocked your socks off in terms of the art that's coming out, either in the genre or in any other kind of avenue at the moment that you can think of?
I can't think of a name. I won't even say a name. There are people who I know. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to say a name.
Yeah. No, I get it.
There are people, all contemporary, young people, and who are just beginning and met the masters. I mean, I still look at Botticelli and freaking go nuts. You know what I'm saying? Walt Simonson, who we're good friends. I mean, Walt's
wow,
is amazing. His drawing, because Gene's the only one selling his drawings, and he won't work with anybody else. And I look at his drawings, and they're like just the beauty of his work and his initial roughs and everything. And I just tell him, and I'd say, Walt, how long have you been drawing? He says how long he's been drawing. I would think that I would be better than I am. And it's like that's the way that I think. If you're ever satisfied with yourself, you're dead. Yeah. As an artist, I think I can't ever. I've never been satisfied with anything that I've ever done. There's a level of like sense that it's not really what it could have been. And you don't. The thing is, don't let that. Again, when I told kids that, don't let that devastate you. That's part of the process.
Yeah, that's what I do too. Because I teach screenwriting, and I write and all that kind of stuff. And I feel the same. I always cuss people out. I feel bad, but I see someone do really good work, and I'm like, mother, and I just I love them, and I'm super happy, and I'm like, thank you for giving me this, because now I can take this and you know what I mean, and I can get better because I've seen something really good, and now the challenge is there. But I always cuss them out, and I get super upset. It's like
Salieri throwing the cross into the fireplace.
Yeah, you're like, mother.
Right?
But it's true though. But I tell my
that's the biggest fear. I was talking with a couple other artists the other day. We're bullshitting, and I said that's the biggest fear you have is to be mediocre. It's like a constant. Am I just a mediocrity? That's always there.
Yeah, it's always in the back of your head, right? That kind of thing. Well, I tell my students, I'm like, don't compare yourself to anybody else, right? You're not meant to compare yourself. You're meant to look at someone else's work and be like, what do you like? And let that inspire your own work next time. You know what I mean? Because the more you start comparing yourself, it gets murky because you don't know what people are doing, how much time, and the natural things they've come into. It just becomes a complicated mess, and that makes you unproductive. And once you have that killing your art, there's something that completely is taken away from you. And I see a lot of people go through that challenge, especially teaching. You know what I mean? I see a lot of students are like, well, this is never going to be just as good, so why should I spend the time? I was like, you spend the time because you want to master it. And that's what makes the work good, because you continue to try. I don't know. For me, that's how I think about it.
I totally get that. That's 1,000%. Yes, completely.
Yeah. Especially because you
don't compare.
Yeah, because you haven't gone on the journey that person has gone to create that piece, so you could never have maybe done it in exactly the same way, but use what you like and create your own based on your journey and how you arrive at that. That's the way I look at it. From I used to write. Don't so much anymore. So I just want to kind of touch on we're kind of almost going to let you go for your day, but I just wanted to touch on the spiderweb art side of things, because I think it's fascinating, and it sounds to me like Gene is obviously a massive driving force on this. Is how versatile you've been at adapting the business side of things to what's been happening this year. And I say that because very, very early on, I got an email with spiderweb art face masks that I could order with your artwork. So I could have your artwork on my face if I wanted to, Greg, as well as some of the other fine artists that you guys represent. Do you, and one of the things, and I guess it touches on the airplane side, the airplane paintings, is the tin art that you do, which is more of that pin-up side of things.
Mainly,
They are fascinating to me, because they're very much an Americana kind of thing. Have you always done that kind of work, alongside all the other stuff that you had going on, or is that a more recent thing that you kind of got into that? The pinup part, and then the tin signs as the medium for it, I guess.
I mean, it's like, how many times is it? It's like when you're a kid, like my age anyway, back then in the day, what the hell are you drawing? You're drawing monsters, rockets, battle scenes, and girls. Once you discover that, that's what you're drawing. I mean, I never stopped. I mean, I've been in all kinds of periods of escalated consciousness in terms of global conditions, justice, war, peace, racism, hate, and the whole fucking thing, excuse my English, that's going on. And yet, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Navigate that.
So.
Yeah.
Very
100%.
much so.
Yeah, of course.
We will, of course, I just get joy when I go into your Instagram feed, and I think just speaking to you for the last 90 minutes has been the most wonderful.
You've been awesome. This is so much fun.
So much vibrancy, both in your work, in the nature of the stuff that comes out from Spiderweb Art, that's yourself and the other artists. I think you've got Holly Golightly, is Nelson DeFaro. Yeah, Walt Simonson. I'm trying to remember the names of them all because obviously
some of Joe's work, Casada, Adam Kubert.
That's it.
Yeah, Adam's fantastic.
It's just amazing stuff.
The pinup stuff, though, the thing that gets me, a couple of people, and only a couple of people have said to me over the years that I'm exploiting women. I'm an exploiter. I'm demeaning. To me, I've idolized women. They've always been on a pedestal. To me, that's what my pinup art's all about, is the glorification of women. You know what I'm saying? That's a point that I want to make very strong.
No, very much so. No, well, certainly that's how I kind of interpret it. They're very, the imagery I see is very vibrant and very respectful and very celebratory.
Pinup art has also become.
I think that's also.
You have to keep the context too, though, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, there is this horrible thing that happens in our country, and with people with body image and what women have to go through, and it's god awful. You know what I mean? And we don't deal with that as much as women have to deal with that on a constant basis. But pinup art comes from a context and an art form that's been well established for some time and has its own history to it. So I think it's like when people do like Betty Page and all these other kind of art pieces. You know what I mean? You're hearkening back to a particular artistic endeavor and style, and it becomes a little different. But yeah, 100%. I think. But I've seen your work. It's very artistic. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if that's how you would say it.
It's what you just said about Betty Page in that period. It's like I can remember. I knew that I grew up with that. That woman's place was in the kitchen and in the bedroom. That's you know what I mean. That's their place in that kind of like that cutesy, with the apron and pulling the pie oven, kind of like shit. Those propaganda images that were everywhere of what a woman's place was. Well, Betty and other models, Bunny Yeager, et cetera, on and so forth, many of them, fuck you, man.
Yeah, man.
And I'm taking charge.
Yes.
I'm in the center.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to look at Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman was a character that was done based off, the kind of risque BDSM, all that kind of stuff. And she became an owner of that image, right? It became less about male perception of woman and woman taking on the perception and saying, well, now I own this and this is me. And I think that's what pinup has evolved into, especially for tattoos, right? Especially for different like illustrations and stuff like that. So I think that's fascinating. Yeah, I don't know. All different artwork, you have to take context too, right? I mean, it's the same thing with Marvel cards. We look at Marvel cards a lot and we see a lot of different artists' interpretations of these characters. And I think what we have as collectors that we're all really good about, funny enough, is we're like, well, this is their interpretation. It's awesome. You know what I mean? It's not like there's this ownership. There's this, you know what I mean? There's this like passing of the baton and all that kind of good stuff that happens.
That's what's so great about Marvel. I mean, they don't tell you. Well, anybody I've worked with there all these years ever says draw the character exactly this way. Nobody, they want your personal. That's what is desired, is for you to become involved in it on your own personal level, in your own personal way. They know well that's you're going to get the best work that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
most original too, and storytelling.
Yes. Which is what I find amazing, just to kind of to bring it full circle, is the new masterpiece set that Dave Palumbo's just painted 135 pieces for. There are characters in there that I've never seen or heard of, and they're kind of introduced to me, because he's gone to some deep cuts. I mean, he's got Pip the Troll in there. And what's that? Sorry, Squirrel Girl. No,
he didn't do Squirrel Girl.
No, he didn't actually.
I was thinking he would too.
It didn't end up in the first one. I don't know why. I don't remember exactly. Somebody said no.
No, and I don't know if because there is a banned list of characters you can't draw for various reasons because of the movie rights,
licensing stuff, Fox or maybe.
So Norrin, well, as you can tell by the name, is Silver Surfer's his character. Black Cat is mine.
Yeah.
And she's everywhere at the moment. But Norrin, bless him, he can't catch a break because Silver Surfer's been on the banned list for about 5 years now.
I don't know why we have to keep bringing it up.
I keep bringing it up, dear, because it's therapy. Okay, it's therapy for you this long.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Session. But the interesting thing is when you look at and I'm sure you've seen Joe Jusko's 2016 set, and the jaw-dropping artwork that he created for that, and then of course you've got Simone Bianchi with a completely different style and approach, and very otherworldly.
I gotta look up all this stuff. You see, I'm unaware of these various people.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to give you all this.
Definitely, if you because Simone's work is something else. It's so different to everyone else working at the moment.
We'll send you pictures so you can catch up. It's gonna be awesome.
I'll be whacked out, and then I'll pick myself up and
you'd be like, "Mother." Okay, fine. This is good. I'm ready.
The Dave Palumbo set is again. It's so different, and that's what I think is so wonderful, because none of the sets have been very much perfect. The same as the other. There has never been and will never be another set like the 94 set that you and your brother did. There will never be another set like the set that Julie and Boris did. There will never be, I was going to say there'll be never be another set like 1992, but then Jusko did it again. But even he himself would say, he did that because he was.
You mean 92 and 16 are so different?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's pretty crazy.
That's the idea. I mean, you don't want to just keep repeating yourself too. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully that's what you do. You grow. Sometimes people don't want to see that because they fell in love with your past. They want to keep you in their past. That's why you want to keep me in your past.
Yeah.
But that's the artistic struggle all the time that artists have, right? You even writing, film, directing movies. I mean, what the hell is you bust out of yourself, which is always the desire is to jump into the white space.
Yeah.
The unknown. The brand new. To me, and that's what turns me on every day is the damn white piece of paper.
Yeah. Well, it touches on that strip that you had to do when they wanted the 30s, but you wanted to do it contemporary. It's like, nostalgia is not what it used to be. It's, reinterpret it for now, which is what I find so fascinating about the current Star Trek reboot. I say reboot, but they really have gone and taken the ethos and the sensibility and just refreshed it in such a vital way. And I think the Picard series was superb. So if you haven't caught that, do check it out, because it really is good. Greg, you're gorgeous, sir. Can I just say
you are absolutely sexy. Look at that.
Did you see the picture I posted? Some guy with jeans. Look, I don't want to get political, but I don't know. It's like we've been. I kept my mouth shut for a long time.
Your mic. You go for it.
I kept my mouth shut for a long time in regards to this present situation in this country, in terms of at the top, and finally I couldn't deal with it anymore. We just opened up, and we've been doing. But it's not like you're not combative. I was totally into Mahatma Gandhi and Satyagraha, and Martin Luther King's nonviolence, completely 1,000,000,000%. Yeah. I think the person that makes a fist, it loses the battle and all that. But so we try to keep our commentary on We'll use his own quotes, what he has said back in his face. And his followers attack us. And Gene is the one that does most of the typing. She and I will sit down and discuss what we want to talk about today, on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Right.
And then some guy the other day says she's full of shit and you're stupid. And where's Greg? You wear the pants in the family, right?
Whoa.
I posed in a dress the other morning with a pink wig on to show how I really dress. You're right, buddy. This is how I dress all day. Anyway.
You're my hero.
We will see if we can find that image and put it in the tasting notes for the episode.
I mean, it's like if they don't know that they're selling it all down the drain to fascism.
Yep.
They don't even know that.
Yep.
That's the terrifying part to me.
Everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid and not witnessing what's happening around them. It's horrifying.
We don't want to drink. I don't know how this works.
No, it's fine. Listen,
it's fine. Ian tries to keep a clean show, but
no, it's not that. It's not that. It's just that if you get me going, we've got another hour on the clock.
Because it's all just so aggravating and horrible.
It is, and I'm kind of, my perspective on it is very much from outside of the US and just watching it from, which is maybe one day we'll get into it as a separate episode.
I mean, if you want to, at some point, like.
Yeah, listen, we should start another show, Norrin.
I'm in. That's you. Just be us three. We can just hang out. I'm down for that.
Yeah, Sunday mornings, keep them free.
I love it.
We'll do regularly. You make the coffee. I'll bring the scones. Greg Hildebrandt, I think you're fabulous. Quite frankly, I think your work is. We're obviously fans of your work.
Obviously,
we love
huge
fans.
Fan.
I speak on behalf of. I know I confidently speak on behalf of everyone in our Facebook community when I say thank you for creating all those pieces.
Thank you.
Because
thank you for everything you do. Thank you for saying this. Thank you for you making it public, making everything and keeping enthusiasm alive in the world.
We've got to do it.
And excitement and beauty. And I mean, thank you.
That's what it's about. This is why we love talking to creators like you of some of these 90s sets that a lot of people grew up on, because this is kind of the almost the secret history. The oral history has never been recorded. Because a lot of this was before internet. So unless you've got copies of this, Cards Illustrated stashed under your mattress. Let's face it, not many people do. Not many people did even then. I shouldn't be rude about them because we'll probably interview them at some point. But
that'd be awesome.
It's the secret history of the creation of things that people are still discovering. Which is why
true because
somebody said to me kind of recently, "Didn't you used to be famous?"
You are still famous, sir. You have no idea. Yeah. Well, it's funny because Ian and I mean, we have almost how many members now, Ian? It's crazy.
1,100 in Marvel Masterpieces collectors.
Just insane.
Yeah.
We have so many people, and it's so funny to see all these people come together because we all used to sit around as kids, look at the cards, and talk about the art. But that was it, right? It's just the conversation between 2 or 3 friends who were just in awe of these pieces. And now it's like all of us coming together. We're like, we need to know more. We need to get everybody together. We need to talk about this because this is something that's been kind of glossed over. And Ian and I are trying so desperately, with your help, of course, bring it back into the limelight.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, listen, Greg, this is fantastic. We will put on our show notes links to Spiderweb art, where people can buy an enormous array of pocket money pleasers to remortgage your house, depending on which end of the spectrum you want to go with, and all of the other fine artists that you represent. Obviously, your Instagram feed is brilliant. No one else I know, 81, is posting Instagram posts on the 1st of October, buried under a giant toy spider. which has got to be seen to be believed. So I'll just let people discover that on their own. You're a bundle of fun. Long may you continue to be so. Thank you so much. Can you remember what we asked you? How we sign off our show at the beginning of at the very top?
Enjoy collecting.
Thanks for listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast. Visuals and tasting notes for each episode can be found on our Facebook page. You can subscribe and leave us a voicemail via our home on anchor.fm/MCCP. We're also on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. Please take a second to subscribe, like, and review our show wherever you get your podcasts. Our podcast can be found by Googling at the MCC Pod, which will also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Our Facebook community is at MCCW, Marvel Card Collectors Worldwide, and MMC, Marvel Masterpieces Collectors. The great music we use is called Rocket Power by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks to the collectors, artists, and creators who support the Marvel Cards Fan Collective. We'll see you next time, and remember, it's a small hobby but a fun one. Make mine Marvel and enjoy collecting.